To those uninitiated, Heroes of Might and Magic 3, or Heroes 3 for short, is a turn-based strategy game developed originally through New World Computing under 3DO in 1999. It's a game that I and many others grew up with, and even if you were too young at the time, I suspect you'd enjoy playing it too. Now in my game development journey, I want to be reviewing games so I can understand them better, I can understand what makes them good, what makes them exciting, what makes them tick. So today I'm reviewing Heroes 3, but there are so many aspects to this game that I'm just going to have to review one aspect, which is what gives this game such a unique feel, such a unique atmosphere. It creates a light-hearted but mysterious world which sticks with you long after you turn off your computer. It's akin to having a board game come alive. It does something special and memorable. So what is so special about this game? Is it my childhood nostalgia? Well, I don't think it's nostalgia, because I've known people who picked up the game later in life and really enjoyed it. For example, I introduced it to my wife in her mid-20s for the very first time, and we used to play for hours on end. It does create a certain mood, but how? Well, let's look at the various elements. As to the music and the sounds, the music in Heroes 3 is not imposing, like it was in Heroes 4, for example. And it's absolutely beautiful to listen to. In fact, you could leave the game on in the background and feel a sense of still being in that world. When you enter a town, that particular town's music also gives you a sense of purpose and home. My favourite is obviously the Rampart music. The sounds, in particular the horse galloping, or the little jingle played at the dawn of each new day, it never gets tiring. Certain things come to mind now that I've said this. For example, the sound of electricity cables being built in SimCity 2000, the chant of priests in Age of Empires, the sound of gold pouring out of monsters in Diablo. I really think these are important elements in a game and shouldn't be forgotten by game designers. Now as to graphics, it doesn't try to be something it's not. It's honest. It's a bit cartoonish, and it doesn't try to be ultra realistic or in scale. You've got weirdly small buildings or oddly large artifacts lying around. It's a bit like looking at an old but magical map. Now as to certain elements of gameplay, the fact that it's turn-based allows you to play in your own time, even in multiplayer. You set the pace. You get to check the items on your characters and plan your attacks more strategically. I mean, if we, for example, used a real-time strategy style like Age of Empires and applied it into this game, it just wouldn't work. Now, leveling up isn't necessarily unique to Heroes 3, but there are so many elements to leveling up in this game, so many different ways and perspectives of looking at it, that it creates a unique story and a unique hero every single time you play. For example, magic, different types of magic, different levels of magic, different guilds, none of which guarantee the same spells, which require you to visit or conquer other towns. Certain races cannot learn certain types of spells. Each strand of magic has a different emphasis. Some are on control, some on offense, some on defense, some on healing, and others on benefits, and some are used in combination. Now on stories, there is a little story that goes with almost every item you pick up, every place you visit. If you do take the time to read these, it adds to the small imagined parts of the story. But more importantly, these stories don't take themselves too seriously, a little bit like the graphics. They're like little comical messages squeaking up at you from this tiny world. It keeps things from becoming too serious. Now amalgamate all these elements together and it feels like controlling little hero characters on a living and breathing board game, with little things dancing, moving, twinkling. A bit like looking at a magical map of adventures. The world gives you a calming and mysterious feeling of adventure. These elements are all almost perfectly balanced. Have the music too overbearing and you're more likely to turn it off. Have the sound effects too dark or bubbly, and you remove the light-hearted nature of the elements on the map. So what can we learn from this in making games? Well, I think it's important to have a vision for how you want the game to feel at the end of the day. What sort of atmosphere you want the player to experience. And whilst I think having this vision is important pretty early on, I don't think it's the first thing you should do when making a game. It's probably not right to come up with a fantastic mood or feel for your game, but the game mechanics are terrible. So I would say probably game mechanics are still more important than the atmosphere. That way your assets, world, story, etc. are all generally consistent and complement each other. Of course, it will still require constant tweaking and balancing, but you should have an idea of what you're working towards. And of course, if you're interested in seeing what games I'll be making one day, please stay tuned and subscribe and follow my journey. And it really helps my videos reach a wider audience if you press that like button. Now, obviously this is a really popular game, so if it's one of your favorite games and you grew up with it, or you have a particular view of what really makes this game have its unique atmosphere and feel, let me know in the comments down below. I'm still learning game development, and breaking down games like this into these particular elements really helps me understand, what it is that is happening in the experience of that particular game. Aside from classic game breakdowns like this, I do want to review newer and also other indie games and try to figure out if there's something that makes them special as well. So I'll see you in the next video, and if you haven't manipulated the YouTube algorithm yet, then go ahead, click that like button, and see you next time.